How do you cope with the transition from courtship to marriage? Two sometimes very different people are coming together to form a new household. How do we manage the transitional experiences along with our expectations and our emotions? My name is Leeanna Allen, and you are tuned into Mixed Essence, where our goal is to help you live whole in your life and in your relationships. Join us as we have this ever relevant conversation today. So to discuss this interesting topic, where we're talking about transitioning from courtship to marriage, I have my good friend here with me, Mr. EZZE CRANDON, former singing partner, Line by Republic Bank buddy, partner in crime, full works. He is a father of two and a husband of one, thankfully. So EZZE, thank you so much for being here with me today as we talk about this experience that we've both endured. What do we call it? That we've both experienced over a decade ago. Let's talk about this. What are your ideas and thoughts about this whole transitioning process from courtship to marriage?
Okay, Leeanna, first let me say thank you very much for being here
and
a part of this discourse, very important discourse, and I think one that's needed when you look around in our societies today, because how marriage is failing, and it's failing because how people get into it in the first place. And I think we must have a clear understanding, first of all, of what courtship is. And I think once we understand those critical things, I was looking a while ago, Miles Monroe, when he spoke about people when you're ready to get married. And the person that is ready to get married is somebody who is a whole.
That is
you
so
cannot
important.
be a part. You gotta be a whole. Because if you go back to the
important.
Bible time when Adam was given Eve, he already had full responsibility for the garden and all those things. So he stood on his own feet. He knew who he was. He wasn't even thinking about a mate.
You gone deep
at the time. So
you gone deep already in this thing.
So while we talk about this whole thing about courtship transition into marriage, really and truly we're talking about people understanding that it's something that is serious, something that is long term, something that it's not to play with. So it's not a tryout, and that if it doesn't work, then you could just jump in and just move on again, because lives will be affected and lives are affected, and so we really need to carefully focus on how we do what we do, and somebody else really cannot come to make you the whole.
All right. Hold. Let me rein it in a little, because we already gone so far ahead with this whole thing. When you think about courtship is such a kind of like an old word. It sounds very serious, very formal. Back in the day, and one of the things that always kind of peeved me was how we date in Guyana. You meet somebody, you're attracted to them, you go out on a date, and you kiss up or you whatever by the end of the date, and it's like, okay, so we there? Yeah, we there. This death thing, you're committing to be in an exclusive relationship with somebody that you don't even know, somebody you don't even understand. We don't go through dating as it should be, where you're getting to know a lot of different people, getting to see their likes, their dislikes, whether they match with you, whether you have some level of compatibility, how do you deal with life. But because we put the physical elements into it so quickly, it almost kind of forces you to run ahead, to jump straight into this semi-courtship kind of dating scenario. I don't want to call it a situationship, but this kind of scenario where it's like, okay, I'm with this one person, but I'm now getting to know him. I'm now getting to know her. And we're trying to sort through all of that at the beginning. What's missing there? What's something?
So, Leeanna, I want to quickly jump in there because I feel like, because I'm a Christian, I rather suspect that any person, you believe in God, so you're going around dating should be informed by your relationship with God.
Should. All right, go.
So that, and let me quickly say here that knowing got two meanings, yeah?
Okay.
Because which one of the know you're interested in? The physical rambling, or you go into your courtship or your dating with the understanding that these are the standards that you're going into it with.
Okay.
But when you don't have that and you just go wanting to meet somebody, and just rumble, and that is what you will be seen as.
Yeah.
And then you recognize that in our society today, there are all sorts of words of people who go around dating, and those words are not positive.
Yeah.
Those things are not positive.
Yeah.
And they destroy life rather than build it up. And there are people out there who are evil too.
Yeah.
And so you might run into people who are deceivers and so on, but you open yourself to that.
All right. So it's a lot. Let's unpack some stuff. What I'm hearing you talk about is intentional dating.
Yes.
And recreational dating.
Yes, ma'am. The distinction must be made.
Very different things.
And we have to make the distinction.
Yeah.
We must make the distinction, because when you're thinking about getting married, and that involves courting, it's that stage where you're going to make longer commitments and so on. And therefore, your understanding of who you are,
yes,
and how the person you're choosing fits into your life, and then your plans and all of that, and how did you two of you can work this together. And so if you don't know who you are as a person, what are the two of you doing?
All right. So let's clarify the terms. I think we've both had our phases of recreational dating.
Yes.
You have no direction. You just know you don't want to be alone.
Yes.
Okay, so
She loves me.
You meet somebody, y'all have a little bit of physical attraction, and you decide, okay, let me see where this thing go. If it goes somewhere, good. If it don't go no way, fine. It don't bother me either way. And you have that period, that season of where you're almost like hopping from one person to the next, because there's no foundation. There's nothing to keep you there. You don't even know you. You don't even know if you like you. So the question I'm getting in my head is, can you date recreationally when you know who you are? Adam, I know. Adam was put in a place. He knew his place. He knew his purpose in the place. He was given identity from God. There was a plan. So when Eve came into the picture, all of these things were already sorted for him, sorted in his mind. He wasn't now trying to figure out, what am I doing here? What am I doing in the world? How is this thing supposed to work? So the foundation of knowing who you are as a person, I think people date recreationally a lot when they're trying to find themselves. And instead of looking inward and upward, you look outward to other people to see who can fill me. I'm missing this in me. Is it you? Is it you? Is it you? Is it you? Let me see,
And that's a problem, Leeanna, because we're talking about the transitioning from courtship to marriage.
Yeah.
And if you really don't find who you are, that person will never be able to fulfill you.
Oh man, you're preaching.
He'll never be able to fulfill you.
Yeah.
And same thing for the other person, because they could think that, oh, this is what I needed. You're my knight and shining armor. You're my sunlight. So when the sunlight goes up and darkness remains.
Yes.
And so it's really a thing when you decide, as you mentioned just now, you must become that whole, that person who knows who they are and where they are and what you're able to deal with and what you can cope with and what you can't. It comes down to this basic thing. You got to be honest with yourself.
Yeah. Which takes
and that's a process.
Capacity and because you don't just arrive there.
And here I am not saying that everything will be perfect.
Yeah.
But you must understand that our life is a process.
Mm-hmm.
And so 10 years ago, and then 10 years after, and then you're at the same place.
Yeah.
Then the person that you're choosing, you're asking them to come and be a babysitter. And then if that person is coming from...
or to be your God.
That too.
Because
that too.
In your incompleteness, you end up trying to get everything from this person to fill up in you what you haven't even found.
Yes.
And that's not their job.
That's not their job. And it's not fair. It is just not fair, because what are you giving to them?
Yeah.
Don't they need something?
And don't you need to have something to be able to give? What are you giving from?
Where the person getting that from?
Yeah.
To give to you all the time.
Yeah.
And then, so I think really and truly, when we talk about courtship transitioning into marriage, it's two people who understand themselves, their role, and what they plan to do. And while all of that is just the plans, then you got to be focused in on your own source of that energy too, God.
Yeah.
So without it.
Okay. All right. So we said a lot. This transition of courtship to marriage, courtship, engagement, marriage. And throughout that process, there are so many expectations and things that are unsaid most of the times.
Yes.
That sometimes you don't even know you have. Could you share a light experience or something, whatever you're impressed to share, about those types of hurdles and that you had during this transition from, choosing to be with this one person, we're working on this relationship and all of that, the engagement, and then how the expectation dynamic flowed into the marriage, and how did you address some of those hurdles? Because we all have them. All. It don't have to be perfect, right? Okay.
I think one of the things is that when you start to court somebody, you think about that individual. And as you start to think about marriage, you're forced to think not only about the individual alone, but now their family.
Yeah.
Because they will now become a part of what you have with this individual. And you probably have not catered for how they deal and do
their
things.
Dynamics.
And so when you start to get closer, where you have to have conversation not only with the person you're getting married to, but their family members who operate absolutely differently to you, then there's where you have another shock.
The dynamics.
And that's why in courting, it might serve well to visit.
Some due diligence.
So that you could be acclimatized to what your new family is going to feel like.
Yeah.
And then you might need to adjust in certain ways. And I personally, when I during the courtship heading to marriage, when I started to interact more with my wife's family, is to understand how they do things, because they absolutely did things differently,
right,
to my family.
Yeah. Because
you start to go around, you probably start to eat from the people and so on. And there was one time in my family, I didn't like my my fish mixed up in the stew. But in my wife's family, that's how it's done.
Right.
While that made that seem like a big thing, it was a change for me, and that's something I was willing and ready to give up right away. And I feel like I don't need to have to do this because I am in love with you, and I don't think that should be imposed on me too. But then over time, compromising and chipping away. And I think this whole thing about making these relationships work, Leeanna, is just the notion of you being able to understand the other person and where they're coming from, and being able to genuinely adjust
Yeah.
without losing yourself.
That is important.
Because once you've lost yourself,
That is so. But if you went into the relationship whole,
they shouldn't
hello,
bother.
how are you losing you?
You know what I mean?
How are you
exactly,
losing you?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the reality is that most of us are not whole.
Yeah.
But we're working towards getting there. And so we have those realities too.
Mm-hmm.
But people should just be mindful.
Yeah.
Be mindful of the reality that you mentioned. Being a whole person before taking those steps, because they're absolutely serious.
I think what I heard you touch on as well is the negotiable expectations and the non-negotiable.
Yes, they are.
Right? And again, these are things that are often not articulated, and I think it's really important. If you're not married as yet, but you're with somebody that you guys are heading in that direction, the hard conversations about what your future would look like and who expects what and when, those conversations need to start now.
Yes.
So before you get into the relationship in that sense, y'all have some level of understanding of what are your expectations, what are mine, how do we work to make this dance smooth and easy, you know?
Yes.
So the wet fish or dry fish was a negotiable expectation.
That was negotiable.
Was a negotiable expectation,
It was.
you know? But
was.
yeah, I totally get that. My husband grew up in an environment where you do the whole broke up house Christmas time. Everything come down and you do that like twice a year. Right? Everything comes down, everything pack away. The whole guy needs to know you're talking about when you say broke up house. Everything gets packed away, covered off, clean from ceiling to everything. My girl, moi, grew up in a home where up until I got married, my mom did most of the broke up house thing. And I don't even think we did the full broke up house. She would ask me to like clean, where's call it?
Wipe down,
no man, the China, the thing that's got your wares in it. To clean that out and wash the wares and wash my little flowers, but everything else. So the whole thing about we got to take down everything, like how little things like that, if you don't know how to navigate, and also the grace to be extended to that person to realize that you're not the same. You have different upbringings, you bring different things to the table. This is your strength, this may be my weakness, and vice versa. How do we take those strengths and make them into something? How do I help you along in your process of your weakness? And that's part of the being whole. Because if you come only with your weaknesses and you have no strengths in yourself to bring to the table, what are you bringing?
You know, the Bible talks about us esteeming others better than ourselves. And that's a level of maturity that once we have, it allows you to give real consideration to someone else. And because we live in a society that is so selfish and self-centered, people think first about themselves and somebody else. And so when someone does something and it might be wrong, we do not stop to process, you know, like what caused this person to be there and so on. Especially if that's an area that it's our strong point. It's so easy to look down at that individual. And so we really have to come to that place of having understanding, being patient, because that person can get to a place like you, but not now. And with your help, they can get there. And so we got to be patient. And in some cases, be long-suffering, because it might mess up a couple times well down the road. But you have to believe in them. So if this is the person that you want to live 25 years or how much years with, then obviously these are the principles you got to employ into making it a reality. Just in case you didn't grow up in a family where you experience these things, for heaven's sake, find out. Go and ask. If you
Yeah.
get people who are married for a long time, go and
Have a
ask.
conversation.
Have the conversation. And because sometimes, and what the other thing that is fueling, what people perceive fuels a good relationship is education. So
Not
you think
always.
because you learn that you'll get it.
Not always.
That's
IQ is not EQ.
You know?
IQ is not EQ.
Indeed.
Intelligence is
Indeed.
not academic intelligence, is not emotional intelligence.
Well,
It
that's
comes
another-
from a totally
Oh,
different.
man.
There's a whole different episode.
By itself. It really
There's an episode by itself,
Yeah.
but I hear a lot in what you're saying because I think women too, we tend to, how do I put this? We kind of put you guys on our timeline. So we see all this potential in you, all of these things that, could become a reality if you would dedicate yourself to this specific thing, or how you can contribute to the home in this specific way or whatnot. And we may accept that in the pre-marriage stage, but then when you jump the broom and you're on the side of marriage, it's like, okay, why this man taking so long? What you doing for yourself? We hate to see you guys in the nutting box, by the way. We're gonna talk about the nutting box. Yeah, we need to start making some efforts here. We keep you guys on our timeline, and again, that comes to how do we manage expectations. So we are going to bring another person on with us to continue this conversation that can share some of her wisdom and some of her knowledge into this. I hope you're enjoying so far. If you have not yet done so, do like and subscribe to our page so you can stay in the know and join in the conversation. So stay tuned.
So welcome back, everybody. I have the pleasure of introducing Michelle Charles to us. Michelle Charles loves the Lord very much, and because of her love for Him, has poured out her life and her love into relationships, into family life. She's a family life educator, she's a counselor, and a stress management coach. Under her purview, Sister Charles runs an NGO. She also, under her purview, looks after couples, of which I am a part, and I've benefited significantly from that program. Thank you very much, Sister Charles. Sister Charles holds a BSc in psychology from USC, and she will add value this afternoon to our discourse. How people transition from courtship into marriage. It is my pleasure and absolute privilege to introduce to you Michelle Charles.
Welcome.
Thank you, EZZE, for that warm welcome and introduction.
Thank you for being here.
Happy to
It's
have
my
you.
pleasure.
Yes. So we were just rapping about this topic. How do you transition from courtship to marriage? We spoke a little about, dating in the Guyanese context, and what are some of the things that you need to bring to your courtship as a whole person before you get into that place of even thinking of transitioning to marriage. We touched a little on recreational dating, and intentional dating, and how do we manage our expectations as we transition. It was a whole gap, right?
I'm sorry I missed out on that.
Yeah, so we just want to delve a little deeper into understanding, especially on the expectations front, because I think that's where some people really get hung up on, you owe me something.
Yes.
This is not what I signed up for. How do we
Yeah.
navigate some of those things?
Okay, our expectations are normally rooted in where we came from. So it normally goes back to our childhood experiences.
Right.
Almost a lot of what we experience in our adulthood has its roots in what we experience in our childhood. But a lot of times people are very scared to go back there because, the things that they experience in childhood, if you were brought up in a family that valued keeping all of our stuff private, then you would feel uncomfortable going back there to explore hurts that you would have experienced there and so on. However, that sets us up to have certain expectations. It also creates the framework for the things that become our core values. It also creates the framework for the boundaries that we set up, our personal boundaries. And it is in when we interact with someone else who most likely have some values that are different, some boundaries that are different, you have this clash of expectations. All right? And it is in learning to manage that where this very creative dance comes in. Some people end up not exploring it deeply because they're so afraid to lose the person. So you may end up compromising some of your boundaries and some of your values and suppress some of your expectations in anticipation of the ring.
That's
Right?
a lot. That's a lot. So go ahead.
I want to ask a quick question. Then should we now reclassify dating as pre-courtship so that people prepare for this serious thing? Because you see, courtship is so light and so entertaining. It seems like much seriousness doesn't go into it. But people can use this time to really understand if they want to do this real serious thing.
Yes.
I have a follow-up to that because, okay, you're not at the stage of marriage. You may not be at the stage of engagement. You're, now really, it's just me and you trying to get to know each other. How much is too much information to share? I've heard people say this, like, I just said too much to this man when we were going out, and that was like a whole thing. He may be holding it over my head, which is a whole different conversation.
Yes.
But how do we know, like, how much, what do I give in this? What do I say in this? This is not even considering the thought of going back to your childhood and dealing with those different things, which is a whole different process.
Yes.
How do we figure out that?
The challenge is there is no hard and fast framework. The relationship dynamics between two individuals is always unique. Because person X brings their background and who they are to the relationship, while person Y does the same. You step out of that relationship and person Y goes with person V, it's a whole new dynamic there, right? So there's no hard and fast rule to determine how much is too much. I think it is important that as people get into the dating, and there's something that I want to say about that, but let me just complete this train of thought. As people get into dating, it is important to look for the things that you're compatible with the individual. Compatibility. Is this person, you're a person who feels comfortable sharing, but when you share, you find that the person either wants to pull back, or they seem uncomfortable. So the relationship dynamic actually sets the pace for the progression of the relationship.
So one thing before you go, the person pulls back, they don't share. In my mind, I'm thinking that is what's supposed to give the understanding what compatibility is. Because should the person just open up and share as well, that would mean similarity, not so? So really, if you are a sharer, then you'd expect to have someone that doesn't
want to share.
So like,
sorry. Go ahead, finish it down. For me, that triggers the core value concept, because somebody may be looking at compatibility on the level of money? Are our bank accounts compatible?
Yeah.
Are qualifications
Yes.
compatible?
Yes.
Do we check these specific boxes that really has nothing to do with who I am compatible? But those other things, and we mentioned earlier that academic intelligence is not emotional intelligence.
Oh, no, definitely.
So we often check these boxes of what people can see. So we look good together, height, ratio, all these different things.
Yes.
But the things that really make the relationship's heart beat, we don't think about those things. So if he shuts down and I'm ready to share, that's not a red flag. That's just, maybe he can think later, or maybe there's another. But these other things on the surface look so good.
Yeah. So the compatibility is never just one dimensional. It has several spheres across which you need to look to see if you guys are, kind of sync. You kind of sync. However, this was the thought that I wanted to interject. Normally, when people get into a relationship, they tend to know at the back of their minds if they're looking for a love affair or a life affair. If a person gets into a relationship and one person is seeing it as a love affair and the other one is seeing it as a potential life affair, then what happens there? The one person is looking to get all the sweet they can get out of this relationship now because they have no intention of seeing it progress down the road into something more long term, while the other person is investing their all with the hope to get it to that long term, that life affair that they're looking for. So when people get into dating and courtship, it's kind of antsy to ask certain questions, but I think people need to be willing to give the relationship a little bit of time, be willing to ask questions. We often end up with a lot of problems because of lack of communication. Lack of communication sets us up with our unrealistic expectations. We presume that when we get into this relation, X is going to happen. He's going to fulfill my every dream. We're going to travel. We're going to blah, 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 blah. And you don't even say these things to the person. So the person don't even know that this is what you expect.
So that's one of the things I was going to ask. Because I feel like a lot of people want things but have not said what they wanted. So I think that in creating a problem of not knowing what the person requires and even what you want is just this idea of people not speaking up for themselves. And so we have a lot of people who are not confident enough to address and to have a serious conversation. Because if we have the serious conversation, I will have to address things that I don't want to touch. And so if I could get a blind, somebody who is going to give me a blind, and then I'm going to fix this later on. And then get into the relationship. I'm hoping that this person would accommodate you the way mommy and daddy would. The way the family does. And again, you mentioned how your nurture can influence how you behave as you get older. And I feel like that is what people do.
It does, 100%
our
it does.
kids must grow up being able to stand up for themselves. If they're uncomfortable about something, they're taught to respectfully address that. Because when you reach that level of relationship and you still hiding and bobbing and weaving and keeping secrets and all that kind of thing, it's not going to help the relationship to where you live. Because you really need to know before you can make an informed decision. Then,
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was saying that I think that's where the wholeness comes into play too. You're not I don't know, maybe there are cultures out there that do that, but I find here we're not really taught to address those aspects of ourselves. You focus so much on the academics, and you're gonna have responsibilities, so you're gonna need money and all of that. But the tools and skills that are needed to know how to even navigate your relationships, are not things that are given to you. It has to be something that you personally want, that you personally desire.
Definitely.
And also in this whole courtship season, in addition to the communication, I think observation is so important. But observation without, I can say it how I think in it, without the blinders of sex. Because many times there are so many flags flying in our faces, waving, look at me, kind of thing. But because we are so physically invested, emotionally invested, oh, I love you, oh, I love she, whatever, that we miss them completely.
So what percentage of physical attraction is attributed to this kind of relationship? Because we don't want to say that, oh, people going into a relationship and you're not considering how attractive you are to the person. Okay. Because we might very well focus on all these other things.
I got what you saying.
So what level of that attraction is attributed to the relationship at this stage? Not what to do in it, but is it important, and how important?
It is important, but just before I address your question, I need to drop this Maya Angelou statement. When someone show you who they are, believe them.
See them first.
Believe them. Yes. And that is the problem. We choose to ignore the red flags that we see, because especially if we have in our heads that we want a lifetime affair, we're working to that lifetime affair.
Hell or high water.
Hell or high water. For those who are as naive as I was in my late adolescence, early 20s, you believe that you love the person so much that you can change them. That when you get into this relation, this holy matrimony, this covenant relationship with this person, the things that you're going to do, how you're going to love on this person, they're bound to change.
No way you could stay the same.
There's no way you can stay the same. And that is the biggest fallacy. The biggest fallacy that young people fall into when looking for a life partner, or even if you just you casually dating and you end up there. But that also, is the biggest fallacy.
I think also is the pressure from our groupings that we have around us as well.
Yes,
because while you might love people, they have all these other your age,
their expectations,
their
family think you should get, and this body living through you. Everybody who graduated this year done married already. This body was happy with you, and so all of those things influence how people react when they reach to this place. And how they make those decisions. Those external things.
Yes, the external pressures that society
and we have a society that responds so easily to things that somebody else put, or some popular person. And I think we've created this fake sphere of existence, and they think that they can speak to people lives and to put structure to it and this kind of thing, because the more popular a particular thing is the more you should use it.
It's right.
It's right.
Being popular makes it right. Somehow.
So this is how it's done. This is how it's done in Europe and here and there and so on, whatever. And then you should use it.
And I think that is often called the unreal ideal.
The unreal ideal.
The unreal ideal. And we so often get caught up in what these people who feel that they should become our thinkers and they know the best way to dress and all these things, that a lot of the young people get caught up with the whole thing with social media, the way how social media has exploded. There's a lot of pressure. I mean, in recent years, especially since COVID came, a lot of research has been done and it has been discovered that social media is actually contributing a lot to the mental health, the mental deterioration of young people who are invested in, occupying their time on the social media platforms, trying to live up to the unreal ideal.
And the movies too.
Right?
But in the movies, they don't show you that gap when somebody start courting.
It doesn't look that way.
And so it just flips from this screen to that next screen.
Yeah.
Like
where
that's
the
how
fancy
life
thing
works.
happens.
Yes.
And so you cannot and you do not account for that gap. And so I believe in the mind, we really need to be active, really active in how we process things. And come out of this la 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 land.
Well, there's a better term for that. It's called cognitive distortion.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
But going back to your question on the physical appearance thing, you did ask about how much that plays into the relationship dynamic and so on. Okay.
Finish your thought.
Okay. Right. So for every person it's different. For every person it's different. And I think we can probably develop that a little bit more when we speak a little bit more to needs. But if for someone they find that it is very important to them to have a very physically attractive person in order to feel satisfied, in order for them to have some level of validation that they think they need to have, then that will be a need that is elevated for them, so that they will seek that even more. Whereas for a person where that is not that important, it doesn't feed something within them. They look for different qualities. They look for the inner beauty. So it's really, human beings are so different. There's really no one size fit all card that we can play.
Okay, so we talked a lot about a lot of different things, and the intention is that we will continue to build on these topics in the future as we have different episodes. There's so much to unpack. But my thinking is, okay, so we spoke about the importance of wholeness before you get to the point of even considering courtship and then transitioning to marriage and managing those expectations. Let's try to deal with something that's a bit more root cause, because in order to even know what your expectations are and to be able to articulate them, you need to know you.
You need to know you.
Yes.
Yeah.
So as we close off with this, I'm going to ask if you can share a few ideas, a few thoughts, a few steps for someone, even if they're already in marriage, where they're struggling with that wholeness, to either, if you're married, to stop seeking that what you're looking for to complete you in the other person, and getting an understanding of who you are. And for those that may just be in the courtship stage, what do you do to help to get to know you better before you try to connect your life with somebody else, and then it's this whole thing. Just some thoughts, some closing thoughts.
That closing thought
There's
is
a
a
whole
whole other.
We just dropped 2 bombs. We're gonna come back a later time and really delve into those things.
Okay, so for the individual who is interested in discovering their wholeness, they have to recognize that self-awareness is key.
Yes.
Self-awareness is key. And a lot of the times we think that because our brain thought of something, it is true. Not everything our brains think of is true. The other bomb that I think I can drop is that that individual also need to recognize that their thoughts can be questioned. Their thoughts can be challenged. Our thoughts contribute a lot to how we feel and how we behave.
Right.
And sometimes to be able to understand what is going on inside of us and why we keep going around in certain cycles, it calls for us to be able to stop and take stock of what is going on in our heads.
And just quickly, I want to add to this because I feel like as human beings, if you look, the only reason we can say that this person is a political animal is because when it comes to the topic of politics, he argues it and he tries to defend it. And so I feel it's the same thing with the other aspects of our lives because of that very thought that you're saying that when it comes to this thing, this is how this person will address this thing over a period of time. So I feel like it's a cycle. Now, if it's not dealt with, it recurs.
Oh, yeah.
It recurs. And then over a period of time, that is why people can label you and say,
This is who you are.
this is, and that's it.
Yeah.
And so if we can recognize that as humankind, we recognize.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's the first step in being
Self-awareness.
Becoming whole.
Okay. This was a lot. So thank you. We're gonna shut it down here for now. Our intention is to continue providing you with content, with information. If you have any questions, if you have any ideas and thoughts that you have that you would want to share, please feel free to do so. Contact information for Michelle Charles will be in the link. You can check that if you're interested in accessing any of her services. Again, if you have not yet done so, do like and subscribe to our channel. We're going to be bringing you fruitful content on a weekly basis, trusting that you will indeed tune in and that your minds will also tune in. I hope that some level of self-awareness could start if it has not yet done so. Let's continue to grow and develop together as we seek to address all these things in us so we can really be the people we're intended to be. So thank you. See you next time.